Okay, so Brendan, thank you for joining us. This is super casual, but it is the 20-year anniversary of 9/11, and I was talking to Rico. I've been watching the documentary Turning Point. Have you seen it?
I have not, no.
I've been blown away by it. I think Netflix did an incredible job. I'm not sure who produced it, but they've done an incredible job of just telling the story of 9/11 and then going backwards in time to the Cold War and Afghanistan and just how did 9/11 happen? Like what were the events that transpired that resulted in an incredibly tragic day, the most tragic, one of the most tragic days in American history. In the documentary, they essentially say that this was the most painful day for America since the Civil War. I was talking to Rico about it because I felt like it was a series that Rico should watch. And one of the things that I'm always blown away by in about 9/11 is just the resilience of Americans and just how the spirit of helping one another, and I feel that the first responders, going into the towers, climbing up the stairs as everyone else is coming out, it just makes you cry every time you watch it. So Rico had suggested that you would be a good person to talk to. I know you've talked to a bunch of people in the media, but I wanted you to just introduce yourself. What do you do? And then share your story.
Yeah, so Brendan Stackpole. I'm a New York City fireman. I have been for the last 6 years. Um, my father was also a firefighter. He joined the ranks of the fire department in 1981, and then he was a fireman up until 1995, where then he was promoted to lieutenant. And then in 1998, he was in a pretty historical fire in New York, where the fire FDNY lost two members of the fire department. And what happened was he was on the floor that was above the fire, and eventually, because of the construction, it gave way, and they all fell into like an inferno, like a pool of fire. My father burning 38% of his body, spending countless of months in the Cornell Burn Center in New York, uh, just trying to recover and get healed. Some of his ankle was burned to the bone. They had to
Mm.
take muscle from other parts of his leg to replace. And so in the years to follow, eventually, by his faith and resiliency, in spring of 2001, he returned to full duty. And then on September 5th of 2001, he was promoted to captain, and on eventually perished in the events of September 11th. Um, yeah, and then but it's funny with how you asked about resilience. In my family, it was brought to us very early, not just in the days following 9/11. It was prior. I'm one of five. One of five. I have three brothers and a sister.
Wow, she must be tough as shit, huh?
Yeah, it
Go
was,
ahead.
but my mother and father, I was so lucky to have the two of them because they built such a strong foundation prior to 9/11, prior to the 1998 tragedy. They decided, two people that fell in love, and they were going to build like a strong foundation of good morals for the children to follow. And as they did, um, so following those events, we always look back as a family that, we were so lucky to have him for those extra years. And, we definitely cherish that as a gift, as well as, we learned some valuable
Mm-hmm.
lessons of resiliency, and, it wasn't that my father at that time was so much, he didn't know what obstacles he was overcoming. His mind state was just so set on the job he did, and it was really just a part of him, and who it was, and now for me, it makes so much more sense now that I'm on this great job and part of this, this huge fraternity that is the FDNY. I see so many of those traits that he had then, and that's what, you know, that came out during that time of his recovery.
Mm-hmm.
That he was just so determined that he was going to be back to full duty. It wasn't some, dramatic thing. He just knew it was who he was.
Yeah, he would sacrifice himself willingly for the job and for the duty. How many of your siblings are first responders or firefighters?
Um, I'm the only New York City firefighter. My sister is a nurse at Sloan Kettering. My oldest brother is in the Navy for many years, and then my youngest brother is currently a lieutenant in the Marines infantry.
So all of you are in the service of helping other people and helping this country.
Yes. Uh, it was funny. Like prior to 9/11, like my dad was so in love with the job, and the way his love and admiration for it, like it was impossible for us all not to fall in love for
Mm-hmm.
it, because the fact that you're part of something that when a bell rings, you're going out the door to help the public, like that's the ultimate. And it definitely was such an attraction for me to want to be a part of that, to help others. And then it's even, it's interesting too, because my youngest brother and I have had this conversation. 9/11 had such an effect on so many people, obviously everybody, but on firsthand, it affected us. Like, I looked at that day as, yeah, I always had an attraction to be a New York City fireman, but to see that day, members of the fire department responding, going in, coming from home. Not all the guys were working. My father wasn't working that day. He went in.
And how old were you?
I was 9 years old.
You're 9 years old. Okay.
At that time. I was 9, and seeing them go in, saving countless thousands and thousands of people, giving people that unfortunately weren't able to be saved, like maybe right before they unfortunately perished, they had that last chance of that hope that those guys provided them with. If I didn't already want to be it, that made it a more of a no-brainer for me. That's the part of service I wanted to get into. And then for my younger brother, he had such an admiration and respect for all the people on September 12th that answered the call September 11th, that all the men and women that were part of the armed forces to answer that he dedicated his life to make sure that he would one day be a part of the forces, that if God forbid something was to happen again, that he'd be part of the forces to answer that call. So he ended up going to Annapolis Naval Academy and came out as an officer now.
That's great. And your mother must also be quite an incredible person.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great. She along with my brother Brian have helped orchestrate a foundation that my family has created in my father's name, the Captain Timothy Stackpole Foundation, and it's been going on now for the last 10 years. And it's along with me and all my siblings involved in it, and a tight knit group of people that were all firsthand affected by my father and have committed to it. And mainly what it is, it really focuses on helping like the families, the average family that's kind of in a tough spot, that have gone through similar hardships that maybe my family was going through after my dad got burned. That a lot of even guys on the New York City fire department and my current house at that time before I was on, really, like, they would come to our house every day. They renovated my home at the time so it would be serviceable for my father when he got out of the hospital. And those kinds of actions were such an inspiration for us to eventually want to do that and give back to people that were in our specific circumstances.
And so on Saturday, so this will come out on Saturday, how do you remember your dad? Like, what are your traditions?
Well, so for the most part, my father wasn't assigned to a firehouse that day. So most firehouses where guys were responded from that day with their company, they have memorial masses.
At the house.
We never actually had, in the house with the families and the members. So we never really had that. But not that we had many memorial services that we are welcome to go to. But we also like to keep it kind of more tight knit. So every year we usually would have like a mass in my backyard, and it'd be at like sundown. So a lot of people would come after their day of events that day
Yep.
and come. But once I got in the fire department, my firehouse and battalion, they do a mass, and I began to attend it because I just looked at it like now I'm a part of something bigger than me,
Yep.
and I want to be with my guys that day to honor everybody. And then after the day, we will retreat back to my mom's, and as we'll gather as a family and spend the night together.
Yep. And what's a funny, happy memory? Like when you think about your dad, like what makes you smile? He seems like an incredible human.
Um, so, like I said, we lived we lived in Brooklyn in Marine Park, and Brooklyn for the most part is known as a busy fire area, like
People
historically.
are bad with matches in Brooklyn.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so when we were very young, my dad would have like it's called scanner, which a radio, and you pick up all the transmissions and stuff of what was going around the city if fires were coming in. And I guess if we'd be sleeping in the middle of the night as probably 8 years old, my brother Brian 9, my brother Terrence 6, he'd come barreling into our room like boys, get up, mom said we could go, come on, and he would pile us into the car, and we'd go. And and I don't know, it was always so
That's
funny.
awesome. Did you help or
And
did he
then
keep you in the car?
no, he'd was in the car, he'd run over for a minute, and then he'd come back, and then we would just hang and watch. But
That's great.
it wasn't a mentality of like it wasn't like my father got off to destruction and
No,
fire
no,
and
no.
terrible. He more so, it was just that he always said he never wished anything bad upon anybody. It was just that if God forbid there was a fire, he wanted to be a part of the
Yeah.
group to handle it.
My
And
dad
go
was like
and
a
make
school principal, and we would go to he'd put us in the car, and we'd have to go watch like 700 soccer games. So it's like the same. It's like just go see your dad at work. Okay, wait. So my last question for you is, look, I think it's so admirable the way your family, the way your brothers, the way your sisters have dedicated their lives to a cause that's bigger than themselves. I think one of the things that's so hard right now socially is like the fabrics of communities are kind of going away. Like people don't go to church the way they used to. They don't have a local bank. There's no community center. Like all anyone is on their phone and thinking about themselves. And I think to have a family where the nature of your existence is to be part of something bigger and to give back is so incredible. So what would you say to someone who's 9 years old right now about, what have you learned from your life? What is the message you would give to someone else?
Well, it's funny you say. I guess it's a quote that my father has that I live by, and its truth is that the greatest high you can get in life is by helping someone else, and you really don't feel that until you actually start doing it and being a part of something bigger than you, and continue to be a part of stuff in good cause. It pays tenfold, and the more you do, the less you're sitting around and thinking and looking for something. So I just feel, I don't know.
That's great advice.
It's something beautiful about communities and giving back to each other and knowing that they'll take care of you as you'll take care of them.
Yep. I love that. How can people donate or support your family's foundation? Tell them where to go or what to do.
You could go to either our Facebook page, Captain Timothy Stackpole Foundation, or go on Instagram, or just Google it. It'll take you right there, and all instructions
Awesome.
of what
right.
to get.
Brendan, thanks for doing this. We appreciate you. You'll have to come by Barstool someday. All right, cool. We'll see you later. Thank you.